Hello, darling. It's always really difficult to get my wife on these things because she's so busy. She's running around the world. And I don't know, we live together and I don't know how we can never get together.
Yeah.
So we've got about 38 minutes to do this thing. So we're going to try our best. Okay, now I just want to ask you a little bit about you as if I don't know. But for you guys, obviously. So have you always been a financial advisor?
No, I've not always been a financial advisor, but I've always been in the financial industry. So I've been a financial advisor for the last 12 years. And prior to that, I was in the banking industry. So that is basically my background.
And you've been in Portugal you are Portuguese, right?
I am Portuguese. I was born in Mozambique. However, I then moved across to South Africa, but I've been in Portugal now for about 35 years or around about there.
Okay. And is there any difference between a financial advisor and an international financial advisor? Because often when you're talking to people, you say, I'm an IFA and international financial advisor.
IFA sometimes also stands for investment financial advisor. So, it just depends what sort of licenses you have. We consider ourselves international financial advisors because we have licenses all across the world, and therefore we are able to service clients right throughout the world. And we've got a huge footprint. But otherwise, if you're just locally, then you're just a financial advisor.
Actually, that's an important point because Manuela she's a country manager and the associate director of this big firm that have 35 countries, is that right?
Yep.
And they've got almost 200 IFAs around those 35 countries.
Oh, I've lost count how many IFAs we have at the moment, but we're in almost every country in Europe. We're in the US, we're in the UK, we're Australia, Dubai. Cayman, in a lot of countries, and we're continuing to expand, which is a great thing, and this is very important because we need to be regulated with different entities in different countries, so we are able to service those people living in that specific country. So we have a license to service. So we are able to service our EU clients. We have a different license because it's a different regulator. So the SEC for the US, then FCA for the UK, and so forth. So
how about Canada? Do you? Because I know you've got an office in the US. Do you have one in Canada as well?
We don't have one in Canada, but we do service Canada as well.
Okay.
We have a few IFAs that actually move around the world, and they are even able to then go into Canada and service those clients there. But we don't have a physical office in Canada. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now I'm actually really proud of this because their marketing department were absolutely astounded when we made a video with Manuela quite a while back, and we got all these leads. All you guys wanted to meet her and wanted to know. And then when I go, how are you guys doing this? We say, we're doing it through YouTube. But so that was really exciting. But I often try and I'm often not quite 100% sure of when I should refer people to you, because there's an accounting role here, there's a legal role, and there's a financial advice role. So what is the difference between those three different professions, and where do you jump in with those?
Yeah, it's a good question because honestly I work very much hand in hand with all of these other entities. Well, normally or mainly the lawyers and the accountants, and a lawyer oversees everything that's legal. So if you are wanting a will in Portugal, I don't do that. It's a lawyer that needs to do that. If you are wanting to do a house deed or some sort of deed, or those sort of legal things should be drawn up and should be done by a lawyer. They are the ones that are competent and can do that. With an accountant, I don't do tax returns. So an accountant will do your tax return. They will make sure that you are declaring your worldwide income, because if you become a Portuguese tax resident, you need to pay taxes on your worldwide income. So they do that. I don't do that. I don't know the exact amount you will pay if you hand in so much, or if you declare so much with the tax authority. So I don't do all those calculations. What I do is I do financial wealth management. So what we do is we do holistic advice. So we see the bigger picture. We see everything you have, and we make sure they are in tax efficient vehicles or in platforms. You are on a platform that is EU compliant if you are living in the EU, obviously, and we make sure that it ticks all the boxes with the tax authorities, with the local law, etc. But then all the paperwork in terms of declaring your income and things, we don't do. So we just do that, and we also look after your investments. So we also then set up investment portfolios for you so that you can have a better return and you can have a good return on your investments.
And obviously you do compliance on people's
oh, absolutely. Our compliance is rigid. I mean, they take this role extremely seriously, and it's very serious, and sometimes so serious that some of our clients actually get a bit fed up. Oh, so much paperwork, so many things. But I think people need to understand more and more this is very important, because more and more you need protection. We need protection as professionals, but you as a client, you also need protection. And
protection from people investing dodgy money with you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And not only that, because even if it's not dodgy and you tick all the boxes and you have accumulated all this wealth because of your working, whatever, you need to show that, and it's important. Why? If anything goes wrong, you are protected, because the regulator will say, well, all the compliance and due diligence was done properly, and the company was the one that is in default. So you, Mr. J Blogs, you are going to get compensated. But if those people have not handed in all the documents, they've not ticked all the boxes with compliance, then they are not protected. And we as a company may close if we do not do our compliance properly, because we have the regulator that will ask us, why have you not done your due diligence and your KYCs, know your client, whatever, customer.
So it's better for all parties involved. But where does this...
So be patient with that. Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah.
No, it's fine. So where does this directive come from? Is it from Portugal? Is it from the EU? Or does it depend?
It depends on the regulator. So if you're in the EU, it comes from the EU, and depends where you have your EU license from. So we have our EU license from Cyprus. So it's the Cypriot regulator, and they stipulate all of that. If it's in the UK, it will be the FCA. So again, different, okay? And then in the US, it'll be the SEC.
If it's from the UK, if you have a client in the UK moving to Portugal, they'll be governed by the regulator in FCA in UK.
No, if it's a UK client moving to Portugal and they become a Portuguese tax resident, it'll be EU. If they are going back to the UK, or they are in the UK, it'll be the FCA.
So that's where the residency is, obviously.
Exactly, where they are a tax resident.
You can see I don't do this for a living. Okay. So, but talking about tax residency, so I had a question today. A couple in Canada, and they said they were a bit concerned because if they wanted to move over to Portugal, they were under the impression that they had to liquidate all their assets and move that all the way to Portugal and incur quite a large tax penalty. Do you think? Can you speak to that?
Well, different countries have different rules. And some countries you have an exit penalty or an exit tax when you're leaving, like South Africa, for instance, as well. So you have to declare you're becoming a non-resident of that country. And some countries will say, well, since you're now leaving Canada or South Africa or whatever, there is an exit fee, or normally it's a capital gains tax that they will apply. So yes, that is something they have to do. They don't need to liquidate all their assets, though. This is important to know. You do not need to liquidate all your assets. Some things you may have to, but others you may not have to. Okay? And that is very specific to everybody, because, for instance, if you're leaving the US, okay, I need to just give you a bit of some examples here. If you're leaving the US and you have retirement accounts, the likes of Roths, IRAs, 401ks, whatever it may be, it is not advisable for you to liquidate those or to cash them in. If you do, you're going to have a high tax bill. So these need to stay behind.
And you can legally leave them behind.
And you should leave them behind. However, be very careful. When you leave them behind, you need to have a company that has an international arm or that is able to service you as a non-resident. Okay, that is extremely important for you to know. If you do not have that, what happens is the platform providers or the pension providers, in this case, or the retirement account providers, may ask you to they will freeze your assets, and they may ask you to take everything as a one lump sum. And if you need to do that, your tax bill is going to be horrendous. So it's avoiding those sort of things.
And is that different for every country around the world, obviously?
It's different for every country.
Like for some, I mean, you could probably leave a house in the States or something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And this is another thing. Immovable assets, so like a house, those obviously stay behind, and they are taxed locally. You become a tax resident here, you're opting to pay your taxes here, but any properties or things that are in different countries, you will pay those taxes at source in those countries, okay? And then you, of course, you declare it here on your tax returns.
Okay.
So
like I think we always have this conversation. Like, obviously, it depends where you are, because there's a whole different set of rules and there's different relationships. So, for example, when the NHR, now I'm sure you guys all know what the NHR is. It's the non-habitual residency scheme, which is a fantastic tax break in Portugal. Sadly, that's now ended. So the whole post NHR sort of landscape is completely different, isn't it? So
yes.
How has that affected your business at all? Or?
Not really. I mean, you have to plan. Even those people that came, a few years back and even now recently, and were able and were lucky enough to have acquired the NHR scheme, they had to also prepare for after the NHR scheme.
Because it was 10 years, just if you don't know.
Exactly, so it's 10 years. And I think the most important thing here is you shouldn't only be thinking, oh my God, what am I going to pay? Where am I going to pay less or whatever, in terms of taxes? You need to think of other things, the lifestyle you have here, the cost of living that you have here. And also, we also have tax efficient vehicles here. So you are also able to put your assets in a vehicle, in a wrapper, where you are actually going to be paying less tax. So that is another thing that is good. Not something that's available for everybody, but for a lot of people. And if it's not that, then you have brokerage accounts that you also can have your assets in some brokerage accounts. But this is mainly for the US citizen. But again, it has to be a platform that is both EU and US compliant. For the US.
So there are ways and means, and I think it's important to note, because I think a lot of people, you might see videos out there on the internet today, on YouTube. I was actually watching one this morning, and they were talking about the different tax regimes all through Europe, and now Portugal's tax regime on paper is not actually that attractive anymore. Italy and Spain are a little bit better, but when you say that you can make a plan.
You can make a plan, and even the government will make a plan. I'm not really going to talk about the new scheme, because it still needs to be approved, and the state budget is coming out, or is going to be presented in November. So let's see what that brings. But there is already a new scheme that they are talking about. It's called the IFCI Plus, a scheme that will also be
IFCI
Plus scheme,
IFCI Plus,
which will give some tax benefits as well. But again, the governments will always try and look for something that will give you that. But there are ways and means of you also saving on taxes and still doing everything legally and ticking all the boxes.
But only with somebody like you, of course.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry,
no, but I think also what is very important is people come over, and sometimes they think, I'll deal with all of that later. And you shouldn't just deal with everything later. You should deal with it when before and just straight after the transition, because it is very important. And when you're moving, there is that transition period that the tax authorities might do this, but you can't delay it for too long. You can't keep putting it off, because sooner or later it'll come back and It's not
Back you in the bum.
But yes, and then it's usually you need to pay. So I mean,
so if you're thinking about relocating to Portugal, do you suggest peak? And this is again a question of basically how you operate. And so, do you take calls, and can people jump on a call with you after this video? How do you prefer to work?
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm sorry, and also when do you prefer to have people talking to you in the relocation cycle? Like obviously.
Yeah. The best time for anybody to talk to a financial advisor or to someone like me is always before you actually make the move. That is ideal. Why? Because there may be things that you can do still as a resident of your country that gives you tax benefits that you need to do before you actually relocate. An example is, for instance, if you are a UK citizen living in the UK, you're a UK tax resident, and you have what they call, it's an investment, so an ISA. An ISA is gives you tax benefits as a UK tax resident.
Is it what they call a wrapper or not?
No. It's and if you have that, you should cash it in whilst you are still a UK tax resident, because you're going to have the tax benefits. If you do it after becoming a Portuguese tax resident, you're no longer a UK tax resident. It's transparent, and you're going to have to pay taxes on that. So this is just an example for the UK. The US, whether you like it or not, you always pay US taxes, whether you're relocating or not. It's.
But can't you denounce your US citizenship, which obviously not many people want to do?
You can.
And then they won't charge you tax every year?
You can. To renounce your US citizenship is very difficult.
Okay.
It's not an easy process. It's very difficult, and you can. And then the US make it a bit difficult as well for you to go back, So I only have one client that's ever done that, really. I have a lot of US clients, and none of them have ever done that.
Sounds a bit extreme, doesn't it?
It is extreme because you never know. There's children. You've probably got children back home, and you want to then go and visit, and then the grandchildren come, whatever it may be. So things to consider. To renounce your citizenship, you need to be 100% sure that you never want to go back, because you're never going to be able to really go back. They're not going to allow you, sort of thing. So maybe on a holiday, yes, but not much more than that.
So the optimal time is, sorry, you go ahead.
No. It's just saying, but those are things that you should do it before, and already know what the next steps are. But when I say before, it's not 5 or 10 years before, because things are changing constantly, and the recommendation I can give you today could change next year, because every year there's state budgets coming into place, taxes, whatever, that are changing. So for you to be planning 10 years ahead, yeah, sure, you can have that in your mind. Okay, in 10 years' time, I want to move abroad or whatever. But you can't be asking for a financial report, a recommendation report 10 years prior to your moving, because it's not going to be realistic.
Yeah, and it's also good for you to sort of understand what's going on in the country. And like you say, every November there's generally a state budget.
That is presented.
It's presented
in Parliament, yeah.
And then it'll be
be
ratified in March or something like that.
And then it comes into action in January, and it can be rectified up until March, yes.
Okay. So yeah, it's important to obviously become accustomed to this thing. But what I think is really interesting about our NHR having left or having disappeared is that it sort of attracts people to Portugal who actually really want to be here, and they're not just coming for a quick tax break.
Yes.
Which is lovely, because I think that's what the Portuguese people want. They don't necessarily want people who are just coming here to use Portugal for their tax breaks. They're really excited about people to actually want to come and want to be here and contribute to the country.
Yeah, I mean, we have people that just come for the tax breaks, absolutely right. But there's more and more people coming over for different reasons, especially, South Africans and Americans. They basically come for the same reason. So the national health system. They come for the security. They come for that sort of thing.
The less politicized environment.
Public schools, things like that. Yeah. Exactly. So they come for those reasons. They don't come only because of tax reasons. But obviously, if you're living here, you pay less tax. It's better than paying, unnecessary high taxes. So that is absolutely important. But you should come thinking not just, oh, I want to go and pay less taxes. It's coming and having all your financial assets properly structured where you are not paying more tax, being sure that you're declaring, if maybe in both ends, so in the country where you were a tax resident, now the new one, and getting tax credits where available. So understanding all of those things is key for you to come and be able to live comfortably, and not have that weight over, your head. Oh my God, is the tax man going to knock on my door anytime? Have all of that. I find a lot of South Africans, they don't want to do the financial immigration or the formal immigration, tax immigration. There's different names for it. Why? Because they have to pay an exit tax. And by not doing that, it can actually cause a lot of problems later on. Portugal doesn't have wealth tax. It doesn't have inheritance tax. And it can cause a lot of problems, especially if one dies and you haven't done a financial immigration. Why? South Africans are going to say, no, they were South African tax resident. They never left. They didn't do the financial immigration. And Portugal is going to say, no, they had residences here. They were actually tax resident in Portugal. So both of them are going to want to tax the estate. Well, not
and
so much
Portugal. And if you don't have any
Portugal.
proof to otherwise, same.
And it just becomes so complicated and not seamless. And especially if you're wanting to, or succession planning is important, and you're wanting to make it easy for your beneficiaries, that is not easy at all.
That's important. Now, Manuela, you've obviously been all around the world talking about moving to Portugal. She's been to San Francisco and she's been to LA. And you met some of my fans there as well, which is lovely.
Yes.
I
was the wife of.
So you're just about to embark on another journey to Cape Town and Johannesburg in South Africa. What, with these sort of moving to Portugal seminars, what kind of things do you talk about in your speeches?
Well, these sort of seminars that we do, like the Living and Moving to Portugal that we will be doing now next month, we have different companies talking, so different people. We talk about health and about the national health system and things to be aware of. We talk and even health, insurance policies and things like that. We talk about real estate, so again about the property market. We talk about, and there'll be a lawyer obviously talking about visas, so how to relocate to Portugal, what are the different ways you can move to Portugal through a visa, different types of visas. There's D7, there's digital nomads, whatever the case may be, and the most adequate one for you. We'll have accountants talking about specific taxes in Portugal, and then there's me.
That's what I meant. I was actually asking about you. I was like,
Okay.
in your particular speech.
In my particular speech, I will be talking mainly about things that people need to be doing before they leave their country. Okay, so, and it's different for everybody. So things people need to be aware of when they're moving. I mentioned the retirement accounts for the US. I've mentioned the ISAs for the UK. For South Africans, a lot of them have investments in offshore in different jurisdictions. Be very, very careful, because Portugal has a blacklisted jurisdiction list, and anything that comes from there will be highly taxed. And especially with the South Africans, they have a lot of their assets outside of South Africa, in Isle of Man, in Jersey, in Guernsey, in Mauritius, things like that. Be aware.
Are those all blacklisted in Portugal?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So, and those things, you should make the transition to a whitelisted jurisdiction before you make the move. So I'm going to be talking about those things that people need to be aware of. And then I'm going to be talking about specific tax vehicles for people becoming Portuguese tax residents. So, and I'm also going to be talking about investments, a little bit about investments. We have in-house DFM, so discretionary fund management. We have advisory, so fund advisory people on board that can actually put together an investment portfolio specifically tailored for your needs and requirements and taste and likes. So, they are the ones that are sitting and timing the market, and they are the ones that can sit, and I bring those people into the meetings with my clients when the need arises, obviously, and they have, it's almost like a fund manager or an asset management company having a one-to-one with my clients and putting the portfolio together for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So, like I mentioned, Manuela's going to be away for a while, so if you do want to get in touch with her, just get in touch with us on algarveaddicts.com/contact, and we'll refer you directly to her, and her team will brief you with a couple of questions and stuff while you're away, and then you can set up a video call. Is that right?
Yeah, even when I'm here. So normally, feel free to contact me. I will always email you back with a few questions just to make sure that it is my services that you are requiring, because like Nick said, sometimes it's confusing whether you need an accountant,
so many
a
people
lawyer,
say, your wife's a lawyer, isn't she? Or she's like she's an accountant, can she do my taxes? And it's like, you're right, that's why I asked that question. It's very important.
So there'll always be an email back to you with a few questions, and if it's urgent, I'll make sure that one of my advisors can speak to you as well, because I do have a team of advisors working with me, and then we take it from there.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you want a beer?
No, you can have.
I've got a fridge right here. Yeah, but guys, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and it was really great to have my wife on. I know your time is precious, and it's hard to organize time with my wife. Crazy, yeah?
Yeah.
But thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Finished?
Yes.
Good.
AlgarveAddicts.com. We'll see you next week, but if you need any help relocating to the Algarve, click through to our website, AlgarveAddicts.com. We offer tours, immigration assistance, long-term rentals, and we can buy your house.